Tonight we step into the shadows, into the realm where the living and the dead intertwine. We explore a phenomenon that chills the spine, unexplained phone calls from those who have passed on, calls that defy logic, calls that challenge our understanding of life and death. Imagine the phone ringing in the dead of night. You answer expecting a familiar voice, but what you hear is something else, a voice from the beyond, words that should not exist. Yet here they are, reaching out to you through the static. These calls are more than just a curiosity, they are a bridge, a connection to the other side. For some, they bring comfort, for others, terror. It began with a whisper, a faint voice on the other end of the line. Sarah was the first to hear it. Late one night, her phone rang. Groggy and half asleep, she answered. What she heard froze her blood. It was her mother's voice, soft, almost a whisper. But her mother had passed away months ago. Sarah, the voice said, I need to tell you something. Sarah's heart pounded. She wanted to hang up, but she couldn't move. She was paralyzed by fear and curiosity. Mom? She whispered back. The voice continued, ignoring her question. Be careful, he is watching you. The call ended abruptly. Sarah stared at the phone, her mind racing. Was it a dream? A cruel prank? She couldn't shake the feeling that it was real. John had always been a skeptic. He didn't believe in ghosts or the supernatural, but that changed one rainy night. His phone rang, and he answered without checking the caller ID. Hello, he said. There was a pause, then a voice he hadn't heard in years. His brother, Mark. John, it's me, the voice said. John's heart skipped a beat. Mark had died in a car accident 5 years ago. This isn't funny, John said, his voice trembling, but the voice continued. I need you to listen. There's something you need to know. John felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to hang up, but he couldn't. The voice was so familiar, so real. What is it, he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The voice on the other end sighed. You have to forgive yourself, John, for what happened to me. Tears welled up in John's eyes. He had always blamed himself for Mark's death. The guilt had eaten away at him for years. I'm sorry, he said, his voice cracking. The line went dead. John stared at the phone, tears streaming down his face. Emily's phone rang at exactly 3:15 a.m. She jolted awake, her heart pounding. She glanced at the caller ID. Unknown number. Hesitantly, she answered. Hello? Silence. Then a sob. A child's sob. Emily's blood ran cold. Who is this? She asked, her voice shaking. Mummy, it's me, the voice said. Emily's heart stopped. It was her son, Timmy. But Timmy had died of a rare illness 2 years ago. This isn't possible, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Where are you? I'm scared, Mummy, the voice said. Emily felt a wave of panic wash over her. I'm here, Timmy, she said, her voice trembling. I'm here. The line went dead. Emily stared at the phone, her mind reeling. It had to be a nightmare, but it felt so real. The next day, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of dread. She kept replaying the call in her mind. Timmy's voice, his sobs. She felt a pain in her chest, a mother's despair. Section 5, The Unfamiliar Voice. David had never believed in the supernatural, but one night his phone rang and everything changed. It was late, and he was alone. He answered the call, expecting a wrong number. Hello, he said. There was a pause, then a voice he didn't recognize, a voice that sent chills down his spine. David, you don't know me, the voice said, but I know you. David felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. Who are you? He asked, his voice shaking. The voice laughed, a sinister, hollow laugh. That's not important. What's important is what I know about you. David's mind raced. Who was this person? How did they know him? What do you want? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The voice sighed. I want you to remember. Remember what you did. David's heart pounded. He had no idea what the voice was talking about. The call ended abruptly. David stared at the phone, his mind in turmoil. Section 6. The midnight call. Julia's phone rang at midnight. She was alone in her apartment reading a book. She picked up the phone, puzzled by the unknown number. "Hello?" she said. There was a crackle of static, then a voice she didn't recognize. A voice that sounded distant, almost ghostly. "Julia, can you hear me?" the voice said. Julia's heart skipped a beat. "Who is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. The voice sighed, a sound filled with sorrow. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're in danger." Julia felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The voice continued, ignoring her question. "You need to leave. Now, before it's too late." The call ended abruptly. Julia stared at the phone, her mind racing. What was happening? Who was that voice? She felt a growing sense of fear, a feeling that she was being watched. She looked around her apartment, but everything seemed normal. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. Section 7. The Voice of Reason. Michael's phone rang just as he was about to fall asleep. He groaned and picked it up, expecting a wrong number. "Hello?" he said, his voice heavy with sleep. There was a pause, then a voice he hadn't heard in years. His father's voice, but his father had died a decade ago. "Michael, it's me," the voice said. Michael's heart pounded. "Dad?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The voice continued, ignoring his question. "You need to listen to me. There's something you need to know." Michael felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to hang up, but he couldn't. The voice was so familiar, so real. "What is it?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The voice sighed. "You need to let go, Michael. Let go of the past." Tears welled up in Michael's eyes. He had always struggled with his father's death, never able to move on. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracking. The line went dead. Michael stared at the phone, tears streaming down his face. Section 8. The Final Warning. Anna's phone rang at exactly 2 a.m. She was alone in her house, the only light coming from her bedside lamp. She picked up the phone, her heart pounding. "Hello?" she said. There was a pause, then a voice she didn't recognize, a voice that sounded cold and distant. "Anna, you don't know me," the voice said, "but I know you, and I have a warning for you." Anna felt a chill run down her spine. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice shaking. The voice continued, ignoring her question. "You need to be careful. Someone is watching you." Anna's mind raced. Who was this person? How did they know her? "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The voice sighed, a sound filled with sorrow. "You need to leave. Now, before it's too late." The call ended abruptly. Anna stared at the phone, her mind in turmoil. She felt a growing sense of dread, a fear that something terrible was about to happen. She looked around her house, but everything seemed normal. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. Section 9. The Unsolved Mystery. The phone calls continued, each one more mysterious than the last. People from all walks of life, different backgrounds, different stories, but all connected by one thing: the voice on the other end of the line, a voice from beyond the grave. These calls defied explanation. They challenged everything we thought we knew about life and death. Some believed they were messages from the afterlife. Others thought they were elaborate hoaxes. But no one could deny the chilling reality of these encounters. The stories spread like wildfire. People shared their experiences, each one more terrifying than the last. The calls became a topic of fascination and fear. Everyone had a theory, but no one had an answer. Section 10. Conclusion. Beyond the grave. In the end, the mystery of the phantom callers remains. These eerie phone calls from the dead continue to defy explanation. They challenge our understanding of reality. They force us to confront the unknown, to question what lies beyond the grave. Are these calls a glimpse into the afterlife, a way for the dead to communicate with the living? Or are they something else entirely, something darker, more sinister? We may never know the truth, but one thing is certain: these calls leave a lasting impression. They remind us that the line between life and death is thin, that the dead may not be as far away as we think, and that sometimes the most terrifying things are the ones we cannot explain.